Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Excited to have our guest today, Rebecca Grugan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So the name of the podcast is Courageous Leaders Changing the World. What's been a time in your life where you had to summon more courage than any other time?
Than any other time, when everybody, including my husband, didn't believe in the idea I had for Montessori, which was 12 years ago, and I did it anyway. And it was literally 8 or 9 years before I felt the release of that judgment, meaning I did it anyway. But for the realization for everybody to be like, oh, she made it. She made it mean something. She's having impact on people. It took what felt like forever. But that courage every single day in that growth, and to have, to build a team. I think we got up to 3 centers at a certain point. And even when everybody says you can't do it. I remember the first time, actually, when I discovered Montessori. A neighbour gave me the book. I read it in Fiji, came back, started Montessori. I hired a Montessori teacher. And back then, people still thought Montessori was weird. It was for the special kids. It was for people who were rich, whatever judgments people had. But to me, it was logical. And it was that logic that I lent into, and that knowing within myself that even though every parent, every person, including Paul, was like, I don't get it. What do you mean? It's not gonna become anything. And then it did. So I would say that was probably the most courageous I've ever been, because I had no idea about early childhood, childcare. I was a parent to a 1-year-old. I just wanted that for people. It made logical sense to me to change education. So I did. Yeah.
Love that. What do you say to people then when they're facing off with that level of judgment, or that level of, like disbelief even?
If you doubt it, everybody else will.
Mm.
And so if you have no doubt, you've got to do it anyway. You've just got to do it. But if you doubt it, that's going to open you up to more people doubting it. Mm. And so who do you choose to believe? My experiences in my life have been exactly what they needed to be for me to, at that time, lean on myself anyway. I was independent. I was strong-willed. I was, fuck you, I'll do what I want. And I think, I would say if you have no doubt, turn off the auditory. Just do it. You don't need to hear what they have. It doesn't need to be validated. If you validate it, that's all that matters.
Reminds me of one of DeMartini's quotes. He says, I would rather have the whole world against me than my own soul.
100%. Because at the end of the day, the only person that's ever going to save you is you. The only person who cares really about anything you do is you. And if your intention is for the highest good, and it aligns with who you want to be and who you are and the future versions of you, how can you get it wrong? Whatever the outcome is.
Love that. And that stops a lot of people though, like that fear of getting it wrong, that fear of, fucking up, the fear of failing, all of those things. Mm-hmm. When people come to you and they have those things coming up, what do you do to support them?
I run them through all of those. Like, you could fuck up, but who says what a fuck up is? Like, who says? Ultimately, everything comes down to whatever fear, whatever belief, whatever judgment you have. You're in a place, but who says it has to be that way? Who says you should do this? Who says? Including me. Who the fuck am I to say? But I run them through all of that, because otherwise it's words and narratives that stay in our head, and we loop and we loop. Speak them out loud. Does it actually feel? What does it feel like in your body when you say it? When you say you're not good enough, how does it actually feel? Rather than it just be a voice in your head, when you say it out loud to me, how does it feel? Then go from there. Because I am somebody who loves words and believes that our words create a reality, and it's why I'm an NLP trainer and I love all of those aspects. But so many of us aren't willing to speak them out loud, and the shame and guilt and whatever emotions we've attached to them, we live them inside. So when you actually speak them out loud, you have the chance then to decide what's true and what's not, what's real and what's not for yourself, and to have somebody who can hold that space, or who can mirror that for you, or who can take you on the journey through that. And I think that that's how you get to embodiment. I think there's this spiritual bypassing that happens where we don't say the words, you've got to speak only positive, you've got to be all of these things. And so don't think that you've got to change this. It's like, but you're thinking that under it all. So speak into it. And yes, shadow work and all of these things exist. But ultimately, it's like, it's your truth. It's your truth. And there is nobody in this world who has the right to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. We have moral standards. We have a society that has these expectations. But ultimately, as I said before about your own intention, if that is for the highest good, you can't fuck it up. It's you who's determining what the fuck up is. Like, you can lose your house, you can lose all the things, you can lose your partner. And so, like, if you did everything with the highest intention, with integrity, with whoever your soul's purpose is, then everything that's happened, everything you've lost or gained, whatever it is, however you want to view it, it's all perfect.
I love that. How important is the nervous system?
We have nothing without it. What's been really great for me on my journey recently is as I've opened up my esoteric gifts, the woo-woo-ness, the weirdness, and had the remembering of that in my own soul, understanding how our capacity of what we can hold, beyond quotes, beyond books, beyond all of that, it makes sense to me that the nervous system is the antenna, like as in we can only handle, if that is out of whack, if we are heightened all the time, we have to go into survival, and we can't access the frequencies that are around. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3 max, right? So for me, people understanding what the nervous system is without all the lingo, beyond modalities, like just actually what is it scientifically, and then what does it mean energetically, when we can build the bridge between those two things. And that's the work that I do. It's like communication, nervous system. That's your foundation of whatever life you design and build on top. If you have a fucked nervous system, so you can have a really, really scattered nervous system, but really be really great at speaking, like as in your words, but it never comes out the way that you want it to. It doesn't make any sense. People don't want to be around you because they feel a certain way when they're with your nervous system. Or you can have really shit communication, but a really chilled nervous system. But everyone's making judgments on you in regards to like, oh, he's just the chill guy. Or so you need the communication skills to be able to actually communicate what you need. So to me, it's about balancing those two. And ultimately, it's the body and the mind, right? So it's the words we use that create the reality. But we have the sensations and we have the feelings and the emotions in our body. And the thing is that we need both to be integrated to have that strong foundation. And so many people just have one or the other, or they go one route or the other. Whatever journey for them is perfect. But for me, in the work that we do with one-on-one clients, but also in the school and in the early learning centres, the goal is the proactive work is how do we help children have and understand their nervous system from birth all the way through, plus have adults around them who can co-regulate with them to teach them what that is, but also the language and the curriculum and the modality for them to love themselves and to follow their interests. That's the Montessori curriculum as well. But then the reactive work I do, which is what I call reactive work, 15 years to sort of retirement, is a lot of that whole bringing them back to that foundation because they have one or the other. Like I'm highly, if we talk NLP language, I'm highly AD. And though I've been working on my K, kinesthetic. Auditory digital is cognitive, kinesthetic is your feeling. And to me, I don't have the belief if you have a primary rep system, you might at the beginning of your journey. The goal is that you have access to all of your rep systems, which to me means intuition. You have access to all of your rep systems. You have access to way more resources, way more energy, way more possibilities. And so it's important to have these labels that help you understand what might be affecting your nervous system, what might be affecting, what's going on in your body, the difference between a thought, feeling, and emotion, just those type of theoretical concepts can help you understand the nervous system. But the thing is that we choose our hard. And we're in a society where the natural human tendency is to choose easy, which ultimately ends up being hard. But that's the programming, that's the society we live in. It's like the Industrial Revolution, listen to your teacher who's in front of you. They've got all the information, do what you're told. And we're now in the crumbling of all the systems, which I'm very excited about, because now with people who've got access to the information, it's not held by an authority, it's not held by somebody who's better than you. And so all of these old narratives that affected our nervous system, we cared about the intellect more than the body. We paid people more. We compensated them more if you were smart. You got awards on stage. Unless you were cool, so you either had to be like super social and cool, or really sporty, or really academic. Anything else outside of that, like your nervous system is like on fire, because how do you fit? You want to survive. So you're in survival mode for most of your childhood and teenage years. And we're in a space where I feel as though there's some really, some people will say devastating things happening, but I feel like it's the sacrifice that's required for evolution into the next values level. But we're going to have more children who have regulated nervous systems. And we're going to have people who have better communication skills. And when we have those two together, like I'm optimistic about the future. We have a really great opportunity ahead of us with the next generation, with our generation as parents. I'm 39 tomorrow, and it's up to us. And yes, we're doing the work to shift things from generations before us. And our nervous systems are getting better and better, and we're all getting pieces of paper, doing things, because we think that it's the bridge between. Get the piece of paper because that's what matters apparently. So we get these certifications, we do these things, and it's helping us, but we're also still in that avoidant. Our nervous systems are still not fully wanting to, we're not allowing it to go there. And that's why shadow work, I think, is trending and becoming a bigger narrative for a lot of people now. But we're going to have children who have access to more people who they can co-regulate off rather than just the parent or just the teacher, which is what our generation and the one before us had. We had to regulate off the adults in our environment, and they weren't fucking regulated at all. So we're in a bridge. My generation, and I think you're in your 30s too, like we as parents, we are the bridge. And then I'll stop talking in that regard, because that answered your question about nervous system.
Yeah. Like one of the things that I see, I've coached many NLP trainers over the years, and that's one of the main things that I have with NLP is there's not enough about the nervous system. It's a very, very, very powerful modality, especially for the mind. And, one of the primary things that is missing is the nervous system with it. So when people are actually bringing that forth and bringing those two things together, I'm just like clapping from afar. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important. You can't have one without the other.
Yep. What's the thing that you're facing off with right now in terms of what's forcing you to summon more courage in your life?
Well, yesterday I wanted to die. And
welcome to business.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a lot. It's been 20 years. But yesterday I genuinely, I had a conversation with a formal meeting with a staff member that was required to happen. And after it, like I was professional and it was great and it was what it needed to be. But the trigger, like I still have them. And the trigger was leaning into the fact that people are still going to have and hold you to the old versions of yourself. And so this team member had been with me for 7 years in the education side of things. And me 7 years ago was a different person to I am now, still with the intention to do good and all of those things, but evidently, definitely I'm better at communication now than I was 7 years ago. But it was this devastating feeling of they still see me as that version. And I just had a moment of, I don't fucking want to. Like, what's the fucking point? And so the courage would be the fact that I texted my husband to say it wasn't okay. Because in the past I wouldn't do that. My avoidant attachment style, yes, I know that that's a label. Working towards secure. But I would go internal. Like I would go and I would process myself and I would work that out. And even reaching out to my coach, which is what I encourage my clients to do to me. But the courage was in the vulnerability of actually saying I wasn't okay. So that would be the thing that I'm dealing with now. And after this podcast, I'm going to do a session with my coach that I plan to go all in on and have no idea if I'll be able to drive home after, but I'm ready for it.
I love that. You know, that's the thing of life, right? There's always those opportunities to be able to, you know, bring more of yourself to the table, and it becomes definitely almost like disheartening when you've been doing a lot of work and then it's not even, I want to use the word recognition, but it doesn't feel like that's the right word for it. It's more acknowledged. Because, you know, especially what happens like in any relationship, we're developing this narrative around who that person is for us, and that perpetuates how we see ourselves. And it creates this narrative that plays out both of who that person has to be for us to be okay with ourselves, and then who we are in relation to that person. And it's that dynamic that plays out unendingly of how we actually create our identity and perpetuate our identity through the reflection of all of the things outside of ourselves, through all of the projections that we create around all of the people around us. And for me, my hardest work is just like being with people, especially when, you know, they're in the same place, or you can see all the patterns playing out. I had a client messaging me yesterday. He's like, I can see all the patterns of my partner playing out. And I'm like, yes, that's normal.
I had to stop coaching Uber drivers. Like on this national tour, and we're like getting into the Uber driver, and I've obviously been coaching all day, so I'm still in that mode.
Yeah.
And then it was like the second time I did it, I was like, I'm going to stop here and I just listen. Because yeah, they're on their own journey, but it's like, I think the moment you think you're done, you're done.
Yeah.
Like you're never done. The universe rewards progress, and it's not about the reward as such. The reward is the pain, and the reward is the tears, and the rewards is the joy, and the rewards is the impact. Like it's all progress, and it never ends.
Yeah.
And there's that implementation or belief. But the moment you think you're done and that you're perfect and that you're going to be able to serve everybody from that space is the moment that whatever it is that you're trying to build stops.
Yep.
So it has been easier to make sense of things when you realize that the work never ends, and how to integrate that belief.
Yep. Yeah, it reminds me of the quote, as soon as you identify as the master, you no longer are.
Mm-hmm. The mastery or the goal is between you never stop learning. And for me, with Maria Montessori, she talks about the play is the work of the child. Maria Montessori was the first Italian female doctor ever. She had to do her research out of hours because she wasn't allowed to be in the space with men back then. And for me, play is the work of the child, but play is the work of humanity. And when we talk about work, like the work never stops or the work never ends, what if the work is play? What if, and I know that there's lots of different theories and things that go around about the inner child that's within us and those type of things, but what if play is the work of humans? So the things that we deem as work or we label as work, what if we labeled it as play?
Mm.
What if we labeled it with curiosity? What if we labeled it with, imagination? Like, what if? And that's my belief of where we're going. That's why I'm so, my why is to bring ideas to life so that others can reach their potential from first breath to last. And I have this theory that there's a reason why autism and ADHD and neurodivergent labels and diagnoses are coming more and more. And I believe dementia and Alzeimer's is happening younger and younger for more and more, because I believe that that's our way to evolve faster. We have this belief that people can't be programmed to anymore. These children, my children, have these gifts and these innate abilities that where parts of the system are calling disabilities to disempower it.
Mm.
But what if, just what if, the reason more and more children are getting diagnosed with those labels and things is because they're actually the new earth way of thinking? And what if dementia and Alzheimer's is required for more and more people to get it so that they forget their programming? And maybe that's how we evolve faster. And if we're the sandwich generation, as in people who are parents and have elderly parents at the same time, what if exactly what's happening in this personal development world with the growth of coaching, with the growth of all of these different modalities of the mind, the body, the nervous system and language, all of these things, what if it's all perfect? And what if it's all play? What if it doesn't have to be whatever we make it mean? That it's sad that my child's got that diagnosis, or it's sad that my parent is forgetting me. What if them getting diagnosed with Alzeimer's and they're forgetting things, but they go to a play-like state? What if the children down here are in the play-like state? And what if that's our reminder or our remembering that play is the work of humans? It doesn't matter what age you are. And to me, that's the thing that drives me. That's my theory, that's my belief. And so I want to have an aged care facility that specialises in dementia and Alzheimer's in the next 7 years. Because it'll be for my mum as well. But the thing is that I believe that that's actually how we progress faster. And technology is going faster for that reason, to be able to get us to that space, to give us the energy back, if we harness it, to give us the energy back to come back to that remembering of play. But we've confused the label.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so important. A lot of the events that we run are, mostly game based. So recognize the more that we can actually experience something is going to be way more powerful than if we just talk about it.
Gamification.
Yeah.
Of everything. That's how you bring play into work.
Yeah. And it's already working on some level. Like, all social media is gamified in some way. It's just that the systems that are in place aren't necessarily fully empowering us. If we can start to gamify all of the things that are actually going to empower us, how we're going to actually do that with our development, all of these pieces, that opens up so much more for us. We can actually embody all of those things. We can return to our innate nature on an even deeper level, which is ultimately what it's all about. And one of the core things that I like to talk about on the podcast and in life is like, well, how can we bridge spirituality, business, all of the things? How do we actually just bring all those things together on having a business life and a spiritual life and all these separate parts? It's like, how do we just live life? How do we live life where it actually just flows through us every moment of every day? That's ultimately what we're here for. And, all of these pieces of separation that we create through all of these labels on labels and labels and labels and all of these things, how do we get back to ourselves? So what's your relationship with labels?
I love them in the sense of many people I come across in personal development talk about labels being a negative. If you have no labels, so imagine I had these glass cups in front of me. If you had no labels, you wouldn't have those cups. So you pour into them. Where the fuck does it all go? It just flows off the table. And great, flow is really important. It's feminine. The thing is that what labels helps us do is make sense of who we are in that moment. It is when we use the label as an excuse or to stop us from doing something. But the thing is it can be like, I don't like labels. That is a label. You are a person who doesn't like labels. That is a label. It's how we make sense of energy, how we make sense of the universe. And so I am all for labels with the belief that those labels will change and remaining open to the fact that that label may get removed and you might add another one. But I think the reason I love values levels and Dr. Claire Graves' work so much is because it allows you to see evolution for humanity, for countries, for the individual with certain labels that make sense to me. And then you can see how you have to reject it to embody the next phase, to take on that label, to move towards what you want. And then you got to reject. We go through cycles. Everything is cycles. It is a universal law. And so the thing is that that label for you right now is the label for you at that time in that cycle and whatever you're in. Many people use labels for power over people, power over themselves, power with. And so, you talk about doctor as a label. People go and do their PhD in esoteric studies, and that's really important, but then they get the doctor. And doctor, medical doctor, label, doctor in esoteric studies, label, different labels. But doctor to most of society means power or knowledge or better than in people's belief of what that label means. It's the same as the label of ADHD. People will say that that's trending at the moment. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's a label and you make it mean whatever you want it to mean. For me, when I went through the diagnosis of ADHD and autism, my son, who was 10 at the time, was the one who asked me if he could get diagnosed. And I decided to go first because I knew that I would be. And so that I could celebrate it and that there wasn't anything wrong with you, but it helps you make sense of why you might leave all the doors open in the kitchen and you didn't take the rubbish out, but it was over there, and then it helps you make sense of things. But if you let it be your excuse to stay where you are or to stop doing it, or you can't do that because of this, that's when it becomes a limitation. It's another Montessori concept of freedom within limits. Like we have limitations until we don't. And there's going to be a next limitation. Our nervous system is one of those limitations, depending on how regulated we are, how much work we do on our own nervous systems, how much awareness we have. That's going to limit how much we can hold. There is a reason why people lose all the money in lotto. When they win all this money, they don't have their nervous system doesn't have the capacity to hold what's all of a sudden in front of them. And it's obviously part of their journey. But to me, the label it depends on how you use it. But I love them for making sense of things, and I love them for evolution. I love them for evolving and making sense of the world around us. And when you approach it with play, it gets to be fun.
Cool. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to see labels as, labels give people hope, and without hope, there is no life. Mm-hmm. So the more that we can actually start to recognize that they're a critical part in the journey, and that each part of evolution is going to come with a new label, it's going to open up things so much more for us. And the limitation that comes from it the most is, as you said, as soon as we start to identify and own that label, and it starts to own us, comparative to it just being something that we create as a label, a tool that we utilize, it starts to own us. So the identification creates a primary limitation for me when people are actually utilizing labels, because then that's when they start to spiritually bypass. That's when they start to go, oh, well, that's because I'm a whatever it is.
Sagittarius, born on a Mars being in this moon or whatever it is. I get it.
Yeah.
I talk about, and my first I Am Montessori, I Am Education, the two businesses that I have had before Life by 8. And I have I Am tattooed on my wrist because I am are the two most powerful words in the English language, in my belief.
Mm.
And anything that follows that is what you've then made your identity. And that is the problem. That's the problem. So if you can walk around in your life with, white tags and a Sharpie, and you can give yourself all these labels and you can remove it and you can add it. But as soon as you say I am, you're owning that.
Mm.
And then that is where you come into what you might perceive as problems, limitations, stuckness, all of those type of things. But they are whatever words you follow after I am. It's your identity.
How do you support people to be able to, move past some of their limitations then?
This is something that I consider being not normal in the industry, or I believe that I work with people's nervous systems first. I become aware of their nervous system, the state of their nervous system, by the language they're using. And I've seen in lots of rooms where that gets manipulated. And I see a lot of people, they do a course for a week and then 4 or 5 weeks later, they feel worse than when they started because they leave on a high. We create these experiences and then their nervous system was never worked on to be able to hold that new version of themselves. And so I do not do breakthroughs in the sense of a 6-week breakthrough or those type of scenarios that get marketed out there. It depends on the individual's nervous system and what they can hold and how they perceive time. And so how I support them in a one-on-one setting is that will be based off of where they're at. But I'll be really honest with where they're at and what to expect. So they might want all of these things and these outcomes, but if I see where their nervous system's at and have picked up on their patterns in their language, it's this is where I believe this would be a successful outcome in my eyes working with you. I don't promise things that I can't see them being able to handle because I want their nervous systems to be able to hold the new learnings, to hold the opportunities, to see the different perspectives, to hold those different perspectives. And though when we go all in that fast, they'll get a result, they'll get some form of breakthrough, and they'll have that intellectualized, they'll get that something's shifted. But their body is almost on a lag and it can't keep up. And I have heard about the holographic method, so I understand that the breakthroughs ties those two things together and you likely can get it faster. Though for me, I work with people who are in this perceived reality that they have of these limitations. And so I work with them and it's that 1% at a time. And it feels as though they have that embodied more than just leaving me after 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months, having this amazing breakthrough, but then 6 months later being worse off or in a different space, or 6 weeks later. It's embodied. So if we have the concept of time is not real, a lot of people talk about, for some clients, they're with me for 3 months. For some clients, they're with me for 12 months. And it's based on whatever they need and whatever their nervous system is. And if time's not real, it doesn't matter. Whatever they need. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a model we use in holographics. It's partially a Ken Wilber model. It's you need to do the waking up work, the cleaning up work, and the growing up work. If you only do, most people get stuck in one form of work. It's I'm just going to do all the cleaning up work. I'm going to do all the big cathartic breath work, clean everything out all the time, and that's all they do. But then they don't do any of the growing up work, maturing themselves. They don't do any of the, they do, if they're going to be doing cathartic breath work, they're going to do some waking up work. They're probably doing lying down breath work, so they're going on journeys and stuff. There's going to be some waking up work in that, but then there's pieces missing. And for people to actually level up, and they have to go through all of the kinds of work for them to actually start to show up at the next level. And that's the thing that probably, when people go through those big long breakthroughs, then they don't know how to be able to show up in the world in an entirely different way. They might have done all pieces of work, but they haven't shown up in the world in an entirely different way. And if they don't have the nervous system to be able to actually know how to show up properly, then they just can't do that. They might feel great. And often what happens is then they go into the next course. So then they feel great again, because then it's like, oh my God, I'm getting all the epiphanies. And then we have all of these personal development junkies that are just going
chasing
from course
the
to the next. Yep. Rather than going, okay, well, I've done the waking up, growing up, cleaning up work. Now I need to show up in the world. It's like I need to show up in the world in entirely different levels so that I can actually create a new reality, because that's what I'm actually doing it for. I'm not doing it so that I can do another course. I'm doing it so that I can actually show up and live my life to an entirely new level. So it's great to be able to see other people out there also having that focus of like, right, well, we need to be able to start with the nervous system. It always starts with the nervous system. I remember I had someone in our transformational speaker training last year, and she's like, all right, so I want to work with you. And I'm like, could we just breathe for a moment first? I'm like, I love you, and I think we just want to do some nervous system stuff before we do anything else. Like we need to connect into your body a little bit more, because what's happening is, yes, you want to work with me, and the place that you're coming from with that is I have to. And as soon as you come from that energetic place, then you're probably in some form of functional freeze playing out. So it's probably not going to end well for you, and it's probably not going to end well for us. So I love you.
Responsibility onto you.
Yeah, I love you, and let's talk about some nervous system stuff. And then if we continue to work together, then that's going to be great. So one of the things that you said before kind of dovetails onto that, of like recognizing specific language patterns that associate into nervous system states. Can you speak more to that?
People who apologize all the time. They didn't even run into like, I'm sorry. If we talk about fawn, sometimes that can be freeze for people. I don't know. Can be a version of fight for people. It's triggering whatever it is in them. If I want to talk about flight, I'll get to that later. I'll do that later. Or it's putting it off. It's how do I get out of here? It can be avoidant tendencies as well. And so if I talk about language patterns, it's, there is the words, right? It's how the words are said. And I remember, like we've had over 2,000 people through sort of ice baths and breathwork events that we've run over the last 3 years. And my claircognizance is very much open the most when somebody's in an ice bath in front of me, because they're in their actual natural state. An ice bath is like, I fucking hate them. Like I actually do. And though I know when I need one. And when I say I need one, what I mean by that is I have other modalities that help keep me regulated. Journaling, painting, walks without music. Like these things are things that I'll use on a daily. And though if none of all of that's working, then it's probably time for an ice bath, Rebecca. And everybody in my house hears about it. However, what happens is it takes away all masks unless they're freeze. Not literally, they are freezing, but in regards to they're completely dissociated from their body. Yeah. But it'll show up fight, it'll show up flight, it'll show up fawn, and it'll show up freeze. But what I'm getting at is for them, it's their most rawest state. And so the energy that I can read when they're in that state, in that space, has the biggest impact. And over time, I've had to learn how to tailor what I say in those moments to ensure their psychological safety, because everything I hear or what comes doesn't mean they need to know it or to be said, because they may not be able to. But it is their most rawest state. And so their body, the cool thing is that we have connection first in a lot of our events. And so I'll hear language that they're using. I'll see their interactions with other people, strangers, people they know. Then they get into an ice bath. And so we've even tested this with over 35 men's carnivals, soccer carnivals. And, the tough, oh, this will be easy, this will be easy, and then getting in and then getting straight the fuck out. Because it's a true form of what your nervous system, you cannot mask unless freeze is your number one response. But I hear language, I get the reality of what's going on for them, and then I'll say what tends to be what they need to hear. It may not be everything that's come in. And then when they get on the floor for the breath, that ends up being exactly what they need it to be. But it's almost like when I'm in front of somebody in an ice bath and I'm hearing them or I'm seeing them and whatever is dropping in and I'm saying it, it brings them back to themselves, their true self. They're truly seen, like actually fully seen in their full vulnerability. They may not understand or get this at the time, but there's this connection that occurs because they see you see them. And then whatever it is that I say next, it's different for everybody. Allows them, it's almost like the permission piece that they feel like somebody actually sees me. And then when they get to the resistance phase of the breathwork modality that comes, there's usually a resistance piece. They back themselves more because they don't feel so alone because somebody's seen them in their truest form. So for me, the language patterns that are attached to nervous systems, it's not just the words they're using, because someone can be like, I'm sorry. Someone can be, I'm sorry. And it's their tonality, it's their body language that's going to give you where their nervous system's actually at. And so for me, it's the ability to energetically see all of that together from a coaching perspective or facilitator perspective that shows up a nervous system. And if your nervous system as a facilitator or teacher is not regulated, you're going to be seeing, like your projections are going to be based off of your own nervous system. And that's when you start to get confusion, when you start to get like it's not on point, it's not hitting, it's not landing. Though a lot of people want to blame their students and not look at themselves. Mm-hmm. And I was in South Africa at the end of last year doing some in-depth training on the esoteric side of things and learning how to, like, perception is projection, NLP concept gets weaponized sometimes. And my number one purpose for going to these was to understand how perception is projection gets manipulated, gets weaponized for people's sales and for in this personal development world. And in the training, we learnt about how to, a projection comes at you, how to transmute it, how to transition it, how to transform it before it lands, and how to do it, how and that's usually using astrology and all these different the tarot, those type of things, archetypes. And the point is that it's where I might not be super loud and bubbly and hectic on camera or whatever it is, like these things that, like the showmanship. And that's why I think most of my clients come from meeting me in person. Like they then, in my first NLP training, the amount of clients I got, like from the room, that was not, I went into there going, I'm never fucking one-on-one coaching. And then somebody asked me in there and then it spiraled over that. And then in my second lot of training and then even in my trainer's training. And so breathwork training, like all these different training. I don't do a lot of training, to be fair, as in I'm very specific, like a specific thing at the time that I want to master to bring into my practice and then be really thoughtful. Or if it's a complete full body, yes, do it. But the only way to do any of that and to lead anybody in anything is for your nervous system to be regulated. And that's completely my responsibility. It's not my clients, it's not my students, it's nobody else's fault that I am showing up the way that I am. That's my responsibility. And so for me, your language gives you insight. If you're willing to be aware of what you're saying, it gives you insight into your nervous system. That's what true self-awareness is. It's not just awareness in the mind or intellectualized, it's also the sensations, how your body's showing up in a space. It's both. That's, to me, the most powerful self-awareness.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that plays out. People, like one of the things that you said in there, it's, you have things come in, but you don't have to share everything with them. And that's one of the things that I see is, people often in the personal development space need to be able to share everything that comes through for people rather than actually having that deep sense of discernment of like, is this actually for them? It's just like, well, that's great. Yes, you are attuned, but is it actually for them in this moment?
Or is it for your ego?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's great to be able to, and 100% been guilty of this in my earlier days of just being like, it's like, well, there's a time to be discerning, and hearing you say that, it's great to be able to see the level of depth that you bring with that, because most aren't that attuned to actually being discerning with those things. Most people are too busy needing to be seen as the person with the answers and all of these pieces and having it all and knowing all the things behind the scenes. So it's, quite refreshing. I think my final question for you in kind of wrapping up this is, what's the one thing that you wish for humanity?
For people to be their true selves from as early as possible and for as long as possible. And to be them true selves and feel loved for it, to be celebrated in it, to be witnessed and seen in it, and understand that to live a life fully in colour, it requires all of it. It requires every sensation, every emotion, every label, every feeling, every interaction. And if people can have that, and in the work that I do, that is the goal from birth all the way up to death. Like, is it not just a cycle? Isn't everything exactly what it's meant to be? And when you're up, there's going to be the opposite of that at some point in whatever version of up for you is. And so ultimately what I want for humanity is for people to be able to make sense of themselves and be themselves and be loved for that.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me.